All right, everybody, welcome to the Physique Blueprint. I'm Chelsea Kidd, your host, and today I am here with Derek Sawyer from Instagram's at Team Sawyer. Hey, Derek, it's so great to have you here. Guys, if you have not already seen Derek's reels with his wife Autumn Sawyer, who's a two-time Olympian, they are adorable. Their relationship is so fun to watch. I have had so many friends send me your reels before we even got a chance to connect, and just seeing how you support your wife, while you're managing your own career as an actor and managing everything that comes with, just having your own full life. It's really inspirational. So today we can't wait to touch base and just look at a positive perspective on relationships for high performing women.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm blushing already. So thank you for the positive feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, just so you know, Diana, our community manager, is here today as well with her daughter, 6-month-old Adeline. Diana's here to kind of balance out the perspective a little bit since she's married, has a new baby. I'm single, so we're going to be hitting Derek for a lot of different perspectives from a guy, and just wanted to make sure it's a balanced conversation. Hey,
Excited
Diana.
to hear.
All right, Derek, can we please get into like who you are, your backstory, everything, all things Derek Sawyer?
Yeah, no, I'm happy. Just cut me off if I start going too much because this is my second favorite topic, aside from Autumn and I. Um, so just real quick, I was went to college, all that fun stuff, wrestled, and then I turned pro as a professional MMA fighter. So that's actually where I met Autumn. Autumn was this she was a ring girl, and she was on all these for like MMA fights, and she had excuse me, I've got something in my eyeballs here, allergies and sunscreen. She was a ring girl, and she was on all these posters and billboards, and before I knew I had ever met her, I was like, I told my buddy, I was like, I'm gonna marry that girl. Her attitude when she was on these billboards, she was on ESPN, uh, for just being like this like supermodel type from back in the day, and that's how we kind of came into the same circles. And I actually hired her as my strength and conditioning coach, my for my fighting. So my and I never lost a fight while Autumn was when I and I were dating. I was like, I'm never gonna lose in front of my future wife. And I used that time in fighting to like put away money, build entrepreneurship, build some companies. And that's when Autumn and I were started dating. And I actually moved into her little one bedroom apartment from this house that I had. I was in a different relationship, but I left this house to move into her one bedroom apartment with my dog. We got cats. And in her little apartment, one bedroom apartment, she had a bed, she had a piano, and that was it. She didn't have anything else. She had a book on bodybuilding that she read. That was it. And so she didn't have internet. She just didn't have anything. She was very like a minimalist, but she was also had just got graduated college. She was training people for like, I think she was averaging like $15 for a half hour session with student loans. So she was just really trying to get her life together. And when I met her, I was like, she's different. I just thought this is a different human. She had a different mindset about her. She was very scrappy, but she was in, bodybuilding at that time was very male dominated. Like it was a male dominated industry. And she did not care. She's like, I don't care. I don't see it that way. She's like, this is my world as much as it is yours. And I love that about her. And so I had built my businesses up. We worked on her business as well, her business to move her into more remote training and things like that. So we built her a business, but this is a really important part of our story is when we were first dating. I remember I came over to her apartment and she was sitting cross-legged, Indian style, on the floor. And she was just like, I have $7 in my bank account right now. She was like, I am, because she was paying for prep, paying for a prep coach, personal training sessions for a gym that she was working at was very, didn't pull in that much. And it's very important because at that moment, we're still new in our relationship. And she just looks up at me and she was just like, look, this has got to stop. She's like, I've got to change this. She's like, I am a flat tire away from having nothing. And she's the one that decided to start to move on out on her own, to do her own training sessions, to start building up her own client base. And I got to be there for that moment that she
Cool.
transformed into this entrepreneur, this just badass. You know what I mean? And so I got to be a part of that. And then I retired from fighting. I sold my companies, and then I started doing comedy and acting. And that's how I got into comedy and acting. It's a weird transition to go from like fighting people in a cage to doing stand-up comedy and then acting roles. It's kind of a different transition, but she's actually the one that gave me the permission to do that. And that's it's a very interesting dynamic to have. um I she looked at me as someone who had everything figured out. I had built businesses up, I had sold them, people found them valuable enough to want to buy them. And then I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. And she was like, well, she was the first person to ever ask me this question. She said, Derek, what makes you happy? And I couldn't answer it. And that was like, oh
Oh.
no, oh no, I don't know what makes me happy. And she was so gentle in like her carrying of that, because that's a really important time for someone to go, I don't know who I am or what makes me happy at this point, even though I've done a bunch of stuff that sort of validates a lot of areas of your life that you don't actually, what's that,
Stuff you're supposed to do,
that
right?
you're supposed to do. Yeah, that you're like, when you do things, especially around that time, when other people start cheering you on, it's a crazy feeling to have a lot of people cheering you on because they like you, but it doesn't matter what you do. But that can also lead you down a path of going, I actually don't enjoy this, but I'm getting a lot of validation from it, from these things. And she was the first person that was just like, she didn't validate the what I chose to do. She validated my uncertainty, my curiosity, my desire to play, you
Yeah.
know? So a lot of what you see with us on Instagram is we have designed this life to be about play. That's where we make our best decisions. That's where we make, and not to go off into like anything left field or anything like that from what I was talking about, but she's a bodybuilder, so that was new to me. The
Yeah.
dieting, the as a fighter, you diet, you cut weight, you make your weight, you do these things. Um, she loves bodybuilding. Like, she loves it more than I've ever loved fighting, more than I ever loved being an entrepreneur. She really loves it. So she, God, I like. There's a lot. There's a lot I could say. I'm gonna, I'm gonna wrap up this about me. I we travel a lot, and we were at a gas station, and this song was playing, and it's this old country song. I'm from Kansas originally. I like rave music, dubstep DJ, because Autumn's a self-taught DJ.
Cool.
She's self-taught. She DJs around the country, but she chooses. So she brought me to that world. But there's a country song. I'm from Kansas, so there's a country song, and it was like, if I could make a living out of loving you, I'd be a
Oh,
millionaire in a week or two. It's this old country song. It was older people were listening to it when I was a kid, so it's like a lot older. But I remember hearing that at a gas station when we were traveling. And I was like, dang. I was like, that would be my dream job. I was like, if I just got to love my wife and that's how
yeah.
we live. You know what I mean? That's like, that brings in the abundance that we need to continue to do that. And that was that wasn't the shift or the catalyst, but it was like a moment where I'm like, a reference and an anchor for me, just to remind myself of what I'm actually trying to do here. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
build a life with my wife, and we spend, gosh, a lot of time together, like most of our time together. So
Well, there's so much there in terms of self-actualization for what you said about, everything that you were working on and the fact that Autumn was ready to make this shift in life and you guys were able to help each other. Like, that's so the dream. And, as an entrepreneur, I hear so many people say like having that supportive partner is everything. So all really cool stuff. I did not realize you were an MMA fighter before, even though I did realize that Autumn was a ring girl. So now it was like love at first sight then, right? Is that too
it was
far?
it. So there's a video of us, um, where she's the ring girl, and where I'm actually fighting, and she's like walking past me, and I was in
Uh-huh.
the corner in the middle of a fight, and I remember like my coach was like, "Pay attention," He's like, talk to her after the fight. And I was like, oh man, I can't wait. But she was really popular at that point, and I had fought for a world title that year. So my star was, we were both like kind of rising in our respective industries. So when we first met, we knew there was something there, but we were just like, we didn't know what to do with it because she never had it. She had a lot of attention. I had a lot of attention. So we never had to like, this is going to sound, we didn't have to chase a lot of attention, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So when we came together, we didn't know how to flirt. We had
Mm,
no idea how to flirt with each other. And it was, we didn't get together. We didn't get together for a couple of years, but we always were like around each other. And then we weren't. We were around each other around the fight industry, but she went and finished school, and then I was building my businesses. But this is, I don't know if I've said this one, but I was actually in a relationship, and I was like, I don't like this relationship. I don't like how I feel. This is not, I think a lot of people understand that one. It's pretty relatable. And I sat down at my desk and I just was like, whatever happened to Autumn Cleveland? She was always on my mind. Anytime I saw anything about her, I just melted. I had butterflies. And this is the part where people go, that's kind of crazy. Is I just looked, I was like, what's she doing? She liked a Facebook post of mine. So I went and looked up, and she was working at a gym not far from me. And I
mhm.
was like, all right, I'm going to go hire her. I am going to go hire
Yeah.
her, which sounds creepy. It sounds so creepy. Like, guys, I tell a guy, like, don't follow this path. I walk into
I've,
the gym. What's that?
I've, I've had that experience with people hiring me to flirt with me because I'm a strength coach and it is so creepy. So I'm so glad that this worked well for you.
It it was funny because I came into the gym, and it's a small gym, and I'm already like, I'm a professional fighter. I have a lot of coaches and gyms, and this is a small gym that she works at, tiny. And I went in there and I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I was like, why am I doing this? I was like, this is so weird. And she came up to me and started talking to me. She's like, hey, I haven't seen you so long. And I was like, oh, I need a trainer. And so I went and talked to her boss. And I was like, I want to hire Autumn. And the boss was like, everybody wants to hire Autumn, dude. What's your motive here? And I was like, no, I really do. And I hired her. We talked. She told me that she invited me to a group sushi date where everybody canceled except for her. Everybody canceled except for her. And it was our first date, and it was all she wrote from that. Like, we just opened up. It's like we had known each other for a very, very long time. So
Yeah,
yeah.
your dynamic is amazing. I absolutely love hearing how this unfolded. So, how long, just for context, how long did you guys date? How long have you been married?
We've been together almost 15 years, and we got married last October, or October 2024. So
Okay.
we've only been married just over a year, but we I mean, we have been, the marriage thing for us was, we really wanted to be who we really are. And
Yeah.
so like our wedding, we built it from scratch. We had it at our parents' property. It was all the things that we wanted it to be. And if we had done that sooner, I think it would have been for the sake of getting that to that piece. Whereas this was really a testament to who we are. It was the weirdest wedding in our own way. So yeah. So we've been married about a year, but together for 15.
It goes hand in hand with what you're saying about designing your life, though. Like, that's something that really does come across whenever seeing you on social and seeing Autumn. You guys have really like marched to the beat of your own drum, designed your life. So why make the wedding process any different than that, right?
Right, 100%.
That's so
100%.
cool. Okay, so I want to get into, and just so for context, can you give people Autumn's background? Like, she's a figure athlete, she is a muscle mommy, like she's legit. Can you just fill it in so everybody knows Autumn and has a better picture of who we're talking about?
Yes, she has been bodybuilding for 23 years. She started when she was basically 15 years old. She was about 98 pounds, 95 pounds at that time. And her whole goal was to turn pro. She has a degree in exercise science, so she's kind of been in this, but she doesn't. Um, she her whole goal was to turn pro, and everybody was like, "You should do bikini. You're just not gonna be big enough to do figure." And she thought, "No, figures my thing. That's what I'm doing. That is what I want." And she just fell in love with it, especially all the figure competitors that came before her, all those athletes. She just really adored that. So when we started dating, she won her first show at regionals when we first started dating. And then we went on a tour and a tear of national shows all over the country to try and get her pro card. And Autumn is very hard nosed. This is someone who there's a documentary about her life
Cool.
on YouTube. She was bullied when she was younger, like bad, and she got into weightlifting with her dad to like get strong enough to be able to not take this bullying. And there's a whole documentary about this, like I said, on YouTube. And um, so she has always had this survival mentality. She does not take shit from anybody. It is not one. She's tiny too. She just doesn't. So she's her whole life up to that point was, when I met her, was she had just finished school, just finished her degree. It was bodybuilding and working. That was her only two things. Like I said, and played the piano. And if you look behind me, this painting right here, she painted this painting,
Very
the
cool.
Phoenix, and it's very so she's self-taught as a painter. I'll try to put this into perspective. She's a big dreamer, a big manifester, but
Yeah.
she makes these things happen. So when she said she was going to get her pro card, everybody was telling her, "You're not big enough. You're not big enough." And she's like, "Watch me, watch me, watch me." She ended up going pro. She turned pro in Chicago. Which is a city that we really love visiting. We love Chicago. So she turned pro in Chicago. And then she did her first. She didn't even celebrate that because she went right to her first pro show. She was just like, "I'm going right into pro, St. Louis pro, placed really high." And then she qualifies for the Olympia, and she was doing 8 or 9 shows a year, and sometimes she was flying from one show in a city, leaving that city and going to the next city across the country, or in Toronto. So she was relentless. I mean, when I say relentless, I mean no is not the answer. If she got
Yeah.
second place, she kept getting second place to number 2 in the world, which was Jessica Badia, who's
Uh-huh.
number 2 figure. I think she got third this year at the Olympia, but she's been number 2, and Autumn kept going up against her every time. And the judges started to take notice. They're like, Autumn's hanging in there. And so she to qualify for the Olympia. So she ended up doing that twice. And just one more thing on that. Her first Olympia, she got food poisoning. And we're in
Oh
Vegas. And so she has food poisoning the day before the Olympia.
my
And
gosh.
she's already dehydrated a little bit. She's already malnourished. She's already like, the Olympia's the next day. And this is the morning, and she's throwing up, and she's so sick she can't stand. She literally cannot stand up. And we're like, what is going on? How is this happening right now? How did, of all the times that her dream was to get to the Olympia, and she's sick. And we have to go get her tan. So she has to go shower, shave and everything. And then she's holding on to me, and I'm walking her inch by inch across the resorts because the tanning was on the other side. It was in another resort. We had to walk almost 20 minutes, but it was a shuffle because she couldn't stand up. Go up an elevator, spray tanner, all that. She gets on stage and she can barely stand up. And she knows all the expediters because she expedites shows as well. And as soon as she's holding onto the rail, as soon as she gets on stage, she just comes out like a phoenix, like shining, just nails everything, comes off the stage and is just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. So she wasn't even dwelling on the fact she got sick. She's excited for what she did, and that's kind of her thing. She doesn't mind losing or failing at things. She's just gonna go and be like have a lot of gratitude that she did it and where she is, and that's she doesn't get bummed out a lot, if that makes sense.
Full send. And I think that's really going to resonate with our audience. That's such a Michael Jordan-esque story, by the way, like to be super sick and like still to go out and just nail it. That's so cool. That's going to resonate so much with our audience because a lot of the women who get into this sport or even live as lifestyle athletes, they're very A-type. They're very like next level driven, don't want to hear anything about average. Like they're going for, something bigger and
Yes.
better and have 9 million projects. So I love that, it's so relatable, and it tends to be so hard to find partners who are like, let's start with like not put off by that. I don't know if you can relate to this because you're clearly so the other way, but do you ever hear stories about that, or examples where, the spouse, husband, boyfriend, whatever it is actually put off by like how into their sport they are, how into their food they are, and just everything else that goes into the lifestyle?
Often, actually. It's unfortunately, yeah, it happens often. And a lot of women actually will come to Autumn, and it's kind of a, you know, it's kind of, they'll come to her and they'll say, I left my relationship because of you.
Wow.
I see the joy that you have in your, and it's kind of it's how when I hear that or she hears that, it's like it's difficult to celebrate that because we don't have any stake in that, because it's
Yeah.
like, are you jumping away from that because of it's truly a better position for you to be in, or are you inspired in a way that maybe you're jumping to something that maybe like you're not ready for? But you know what I mean, it's like, I don't know the reason why they're doing that, but they're like, I'm leaving this because I want what you have, which feels good. I'm like, oh, you love what we have, that's great. And so we hear that often. We hear a lot of times where women will actually divorce. We've divorced their husbands because they want to compete. And here's the thing that we hear often, and it's frustrating to hear this, especially as a guy, hearing other guys talk like this. And this is, I'm not trying to virtue signal, but like, I'm so special, I just love my wife really hard, that's all I can say. But a lot of times what we hear is that, um, these competitors will tell their husbands, I want to compete. And the husband's like, sure, yeah, do that thing, do this hobby. And what happens is they love it and they're good
Yeah.
at it, and they start to change, and their identity and their, you know what I mean? And then the husband will say, and this is a common one, is the husbands will say, oh, that's great, when are you going to be done with it? And it's like, that's the thing you should have said. That's like, you should don't ask them when they're going to be done with it,
Yeah.
because then it puts this like, wait, I don't like, imagine telling Michael Jordan, that, hey, when are you gonna be done with basketball? You know what I mean? Like, when are you gonna stop?
And it's so intensive too, in a way that a lot of other sports aren't. I actually think MMA is a very like good example for athletes that have to hold themselves to standards like bodybuilders do, because there is so much to do with just how multifaceted MMA is. So I'm
Yeah,
guessing your background did kind of set you guys up for success. But for a lot of partnerships, what we see, it's not just competing, it's that it ripples into their entire lifestyle. So if you're not growing together, or at least in that journey together, you're growing apart every single day that you're not supporting that person, or you're just waiting for them to wrap up with it.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And how so this is a really good kind of thought, especially on that, staying together, is when a problem comes into our space, Autumn and I space, Autumn annihilates these things. If a problem comes in, she's like, I'm going to annihilate this. And she doesn't have to be right. She's just right-ish a lot of times, because there's not a lot of consequence. There's a lot of the decisions that we make, there's not like heavy consequences to them. If they are, we take more time. But
Yeah.
when a problem comes in, I'm like, give me a day or two to think about it. I want to think about the depth of it, right? And so she wants to annihilate this thing, and I'm like a little bit slower because I like to like think about things. And it's like, by the time that I get to around like, oh, here's how I think would be a good idea to solve this, and she's already thought of that and said that, in her mind, she's behind 2 days. And in my head, I'm right on time,
Yeah.
right? So there's that like misalignment in that, if we do it that way. So we know this. So what we do is we create bubbles in our life where we sit down. We call them containers for the most part. We have a love meeting every Sunday. We call it our bubble. We don't call it a container because that would take away from the fun of it. But it's our Sunday love meeting is our bubble. And we sit down there, and she kind of brings herself down a little bit, and I kind of bring myself up to meet her. And in this bubble, it's like, we don't raise our voices, we don't go past a certain cadence. Those are the parameters of it. we just discuss things in a very relaxed way and on kind of the same energy. And that's where we align. And that way, if we have something come up on Wednesday, it's like on Sunday, then we can address it if it's not urgent for us. So we have actually a spot to place those things so that we're not blindsiding each other throughout the week, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And it actually goes into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is like communication, because we're giving this example of, spouses that aren't supportive and people who've gotten divorced because whether it was competing itself or everything that goes with it, or just the type of growth person that competitor was,
Yeah.
to take responsibility as the, half of the relationship, you have to look at communication. Did you actually advocate your needs before or clearly, did you sit down and have that time in that bubble or container? And I don't think everybody knows that they are, or maybe they're trying, but they're not. But I'm guessing that you guys have very strong communication as a couple.
Very. And we've worked at it and we still work at it because what we don't want to do is inhibit each other's like natural personalities.
Yeah.
We don't want to I want here's the thing. I want Autumn. I don't want to put any parameters on Autumn because that what I fell in love was her kind of wildness, her being herself. So trying to control that feels like a lose-lose for both of us. I don't get to see her prosper and she doesn't get to prosper. In that, and if she and here's the other thing too, nobody can contain Autumn. I feel what I mean. She's um but the communication piece is very we work on it, we adjust, but we don't try to change each other. It's we come together for and during that bubble, that love meeting, and that's where we sort of meet in the middle. And it's really relaxing and kind of therapeutic, but communication is it's funny because we also hear one thing. We also have a word. We use a word called um oh my gosh. Oh, now I'm on the spot. I can't even think of the word. Disregard. Thank you. Okay. So if Autumn comes in and she's high energy, like she'll come into the house and she's often high energy. She comes from the gym, cardio, she's excited. And let's say I've been working at my computer and I'm not the same energy, right? If she's trying to communicate something to me and I'm just not I'm not getting it, or there's a little bit of trouble. If we're not able to sync up, sometimes that builds frustration, those little micro frustrations.
Yeah.
She will say the word disregard, or I'll say disregard. And that just means disregard means we stop whatever we were talking about. And if it's important, we'll come back to it. Right.
Yeah.
And we come back to it in our bubble, but it's a way for us to change and find the play. So we're always trying to find our way back to play. You know what I mean?
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another just really helpful real world tool for people to actually use. So I'm glad that you shared that.
Thank you.
Communication super important. I'm gonna ask Diana for some input on that, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But then I want to make sure we're moving into like security, jealousy, some of the other stuff that you hear come up. Diana, am I missing anything from communication standpoint, whether it's in prep or just with the lifestyle?
Well, what I'd like to know is like, how do you get to that point of having good communication? Like, how did you learn how to communicate with each other?
That's a great question. The first box that you have to check, everybody has to check this in a relationship. The very first box before you do any tips or lessons or anything, you both have to agree that you want to be there. And a lot of people don't do that. And what they do is they start trying to change and build on things when they're like, I actually don't want to be here in this moment doing this. I'm not happy with myself. So that you have to check the box and agree that you both want to be there. Then the communication just becomes about understanding what the other person is actually feeling, but not prying that out of them. It's creating a space for them to be able to hand you things that they feel comfortable. And I know that sounds like, I know a lot of people want like, what is the framework that I use to sit down with to then walk through? And there are a lot of great frameworks, but I'm going to give you a really quick example on something. If I have things because communication comes down to what am I willing to give you and what are you willing to give me? It's essentially an argument. If you think about it, not how we think about arguments as like fights, but every communication, every conversation is essentially, I want you to know something, and then maybe
Yeah.
I want feedback, or maybe I don't want feedback. So here's what I want people to think about. If my mind, if my heart, my brain, and everything is a house full of a bunch of closets, and behind those closets are different like thoughts, emotions, values, and things that are inside of me, if I haven't really looked at those and addressed those, and I don't even know what's behind some of those doors, if I were to bring you into my house and open a door that I don't even know what's behind, that's really vulnerable. That's going to be tough, and I'm going to be defensive, right? So communication really comes down to a big part of it is what are you willing to give me? I'm not going to pull it out of you, but I'm going to create a space that when you give that to me, I'm not going to try and change the way that you're feeling unless you ask me to. I may do some reframing, but that's if you're comfortable with it. And you guys have all heard of the is this a venting conversation or is this a problem solving? Has everybody heard that one?
Do you want to be helped, heard, or held? Somebody said that once. I was like,
Yeah,
that is brilliant. Like,
isn't it?
right?
Yes, it gives them the ability to go, okay, I'm just going to listen. Other
Yeah.
thing is communication is being a really strong listener, and it is a skill that you learn as you do it. And always take a pause. As someone who's done stand up comedy and a comedic actor, I really want to fire back with the first thing that comes to my head. It feels good to my impulses to be able to do that. That's my art. It doesn't work very well when you're trying to have a sit down communication with your partner. So being able to take a beat and allowing them to take a beat. One thing that we had with Autumn early in our relationship, she internalizes a lot because she's a deep thinker. She's a very deep thinker. So she would pause, but I didn't know what was going on in her head. I didn't know why she wasn't responding. I would ask her a question about something in depth, and it took me a little bit to understand that she processes things not slowly, just in depth. And she
Yeah.
internalized it because she's been, first off, bodybuilding is an isolated sport for a lot of people. So it works really well for her. But understanding how the people that you're communicating with, how they prefer to be talked to, how they respond, how long they take. That's why I say the bubble and sitting down there and controlling your cadence, your volume, kind of your mode. It's a very slow down mode so that you can really recognize behavior patterns of like maybe I'm talking too much, maybe I'm interrupting, maybe I'm talking over, maybe I'm making assumptions. So communication has a lot of facets, but the best way to communicate better, aside from frameworks that you can sit down and just kind of walk through, is to create an environment that you enjoy being in and have fun
Yeah.
in and you can talk in. Does that make sense?
Play. Play.
Yeah.
I love that. I love everything about that. That's a great question, Diana, and thank you, Derek. That's such good insight, and
Thank
you're
you.
really giving a lot of solid tools in all of this that like people can take action on. Okay, the
Awesome.
next thing I want to move into because we hear this so often in the group, it's my significant other partner doesn't want me to have a male coach, gets uncomfortable with men sliding into my DMs because I post, myself in check-in photos and bikinis or just whatever level of, I don't even want to call it jealousy because you never know like what the dynamic is and I don't want to be judgy about it.
Yeah.
But insecurity, like, have you dealt with that? Have you heard stories of this? What is your take on this situation?
I first off I empathize really with especially with the guys that feel that jealousy because that's really about them. That's like that's their hang up. For the most part, there's there's so many situations where somebody could, I mean, just be honest here. You could be in a relationship where there could be someone who's posting and
True.
enjoying that attention. They could be liking the DMs, and it's like if we're talking about women who are like I don't, who have husbands who are jealous for no reason. Like that really comes to, that really comes down to um making him that's such a tough one because there's so many facets to that. There's so many perspectives on that one. I'll say this. I have never been a jealous person. I've just never been a jealous person in my
Mhm.
life. And I don't know why that is. I don't like, I don't look at people that have nicer cars and think I want that nicer car. Like, I mean that whole mode of mine hasn't that's never been like my own personal mode. And Autumn, who gets a lot of attention, just doesn't, she doesn't like it. She doesn't like the attention from guys, because that's been her whole, like, she was a like I
Yeah.
said, on billboards and on TV for being like a model and these things, and she's never really enjoyed that piece. She just wants to bodybuild and dance and listen to music on her own. So
Yeah.
but I think there's a phrase that's like, you work on yourself, I'll work on myself, and then we kind of come together and enjoy the happiness of that. Do you know what I mean? Have you guys heard that? It's like, I work on
Mhm.
myself and you work on yourself. If I come to you, or if I come to Autumn and I say I'm being I'm something, if I'm feeling vulnerable about something, that's the other thing too. I can come to Autumn with vulnerabilities and know that she's going to handle that with grace. She's not going to
Yeah.
accuse me of anything. She's not going to be like, you're being jealous or these things. She's like, you have a concern and we're going to discuss that. But I have heard stories of guys that don't want their partner to have a male coach. And then actually some competitors have hired Autumn because the husband or boyfriend didn't want them to have a male coach. And whew, that's just a tough one for me. I'm gonna be honest. Like, what's that?
It's really tough. Because it can be so limiting. And like we've been talking this whole time, you want to see your person thrive.
Yeah.
Uh, but I also realize that there's, you've chosen to be with that person and there's something that's driving that insecurity. I don't want to say it's, you know, un, I don't want to say it's unfounded, but I don't not want to say it's unfounded either.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like it depends. And because I've heard when people tell me they're jealous, I empathize with the feeling of like inadequacy, because I've felt inadequate in things in life, not with Autumn, not in our relationship at all. I've never felt inadequate in that sense, but there have been like places in my life, so I understand that feeling, and that doesn't feel good. But I know that when people jealousy comes from, I think, feeling inadequate in some ways. um you know, gosh, that's such a tough one. That's such a tough one for like,
It's very fear based, right? Like, I mean, I feel like most negative emotions are very fear based. So it's like your fear of losing, your fear of someone better coming along, or whatever it is. I guess if someone were to come to you and say, like, hey, my girlfriend, my person is a competitor. I don't want her to have a male coach because Autumn has a male coach, right?
yes, that's all
So
she's
what,
had. Yep.
like guy to guy, what would your advice to him, to that guy be that is saying he's insecure with his partner having a male coach?
Talk to her, be upfront about it. Just talk to her about it. Because most of that's probably, I could say most of that's in your head, but sometimes a lot of that times it couldn't be in your head. And here's what I would say first. Here's the best advice I would give is make sure it's not in your head first.
Yeah.
The biggest drain that we have, especially for our own energy, is assumptions and worst case scenarios. So my advice would be, really make sure this just isn't in your head, because if you present this to her as, I don't like this attention that he's giving you, that's not necessarily the right way to approach it. Like, definitely don't put anything on her. Say, here's how I'm feeling about this. And at that point, I would say, if you're both, again, check that box. If you both agree that you want to be there, there's going to be some work to that. But as long as you're not accusing anybody of anything and you're not putting that on them to force a change, but you're saying, hey, can we discuss this? Create your bubble and sit down and be like, this is where I feel, this is where I have a, not necessarily a problem, but this is what I'm having trouble with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Where do you think they would even need to start if they realize, okay, yeah, this is in my own head. I don't have a reason for this. A lot of the coaches in this industry are males. It's almost hard to find a female coach that's at the top level.
Yeah.
So they can acknowledge, okay, this is a me thing. Like, where would you say to start putting in work to get to a more secure place like you clearly are?
Gosh. Because like I said, I've always been here. And
Yeah.
this is the one area that I feel just very just fluid and natural with. Like, I've always kind of always been this way. But like with anything, if you feel like with anything, if you feel this thing that's causing you turmoil, the first thing I would say is to write it out, not talk it into Chat GPT, because it'll give you it'll start to work you through some framework. You know what I mean? I would say write it out and get it out of your head so that you can assess it. Because here's the thing. Here, this is actually Autumn. What Autumn does really well is if there's a problem. Let's say that we did have this problem. Well, I'm like, look, I just don't. Your coach, you send him pictures. I don't like any of this that's happening. We would separate ourselves from the problem, the energy of that, and we're on this side of the problem. So I don't put the problem on her, she doesn't put it on me. And this is how Autumn operates. So we would separate from that and we would together try to solve that. That makes it like it's kind of like a team building thing that you can separate yourself from. But this phrase really helps. You can't solve a problem while you're in the energy of the problem. You have to separate from that, especially in your own head where you have biases, there's not a lot of clarity. So I would say write it down, have it to where you're separated from it, and get a really good understanding of being like, is this true?
Yeah.
Is this what I wrote down? Is this actually true? And I'll share this with you guys. I wrote a letter to my dad and I stopped talking for like 3 years, and my I wrote a letter to him. This is a practice that a lot of people do with people that they've separated from. You write a letter to them and then you don't send it. You just put it away in your desk. I wrote a letter to my dad, and when I came back to it, like after we had reconciled, because that helps you get to that, I went back to the letter and I was like, none of this, the anger was true, but it's not really true. These
Yeah.
are I had created these because once you have an idea of someone in something or someone in your head and you start to write about that, you start to create this narrative, and that's
Totally.
yeah. So that's the problem. That's what I would say is get that narrative out of your head, write it down, and make damn sure that what you're saying is true and it's actually how you feel. Because if I'm angry, if I was angry at Autumn, and then I just put that on her, she has to hold that. She has to hold my anger when it's not true. And it's like, why would I want to hurt somebody on something that's not even true? You know what I mean? So that
You
would be my advice.
I love that. We could have made this whole episode like how to be a more secure man, like an emotionally healthy man, which I feel like is such an important thing. So the not believing like your own bullshit narrative, I think is, really, really important. And then not villainizing the other person. Oh gosh, there was something else that you said in there that was just like, it's so powerful. Like it's not us in the problem. It's like you guys as a team versus the problem. Amazing. Like it's so hard when we get hijacked, but you come back to like emotionally hijacked in the moment, but you come back to what you're saying, like you guys both want to be here. Like as long as that box is checked, then everything else kind of falls into place, right?
It does. It's the Are you familiar with like first principle? Everybody familiar with like first principle reasoning? Like the first principle. It's like the idea is this is the very basis of your argument has to be true, but you can stack BS and lies on top of something that's not true. You can say things that are right and correct, but your basis could be wrong. So like if I came to Autumn and I was like, hey, you're making me really upset by sending pictures to your coach and doing these things. And I can say, right, that's not true. I'm actually not upset about that. I would be upset about myself, but I can still say things that are true on top of that. I could say, um, you know, your bodybuilding career is actually making me insecure, right? But if I that could be a true statement, but every true statement that I build on top of this false premise, when we decide we want to work through this, we now have to work through all of these things that are, even though they're true, to get to this point, this
Yeah.
basis. So you really have to do. So if you don't knock out that first premise, if you don't really understand the basis of where this is coming from, of what it actually is, you will start to stack things on top of it that feels good and right, but later manifest in weird ways, like anger or impulses if you have them, drinking or whatever people, whatever impulses people do. So you both have to sit down and kind of understand what is the actual problem here. Autumn does that really well.
It
That's
really goes back to it really goes back to what you said earlier about taking a pause. Like acting on impulse, just stop talking about the first thing that comes to mind, that's not going to get you to that root problem. You need to like to like take a break and write it down, figure out what you're actually talking about and what your truth is.
I love that. Yes, you summed up what I just ranted on. Very. Thank you so much. You just thank you. That's gonna be on my next log line for something. Thank you.
It's so hard too because I think sometimes you can have things that are going on in relationships and you like know something's not right and it's kind of boiling over into everything, but sometimes it's hard to pinpoint it. Sometimes, there isn't really much accountability on like if people aren't on the same page with things. So it's not always so straightforward as like your bodybuilding career makes me feel some type of way.
Right. Yeah. That that's the fun part. We just to wrap that up, we have a lot of fun exploring. It's like detective work. We just explore these things of if something doesn't feel good or if there's friction. We have a rule: if there's friction 3 times around something, we have to change it. We have to sit down and challenge it. It could be something of like the way that we organized our kitchen. Like, okay, we have too much friction 3 times, or I wake up in the morning and I'm waking her up because I'm getting up early or than her, and it's like making her wake up before she has to, especially in prep. So if it happens 3 times, we sit down and challenge that. And that's how we get ahead and stay proactive on those things.
I'm going to be really honest. I don't know if I shared this earlier, but I'm divorced for about a year now. We divorced amicably, together for 10 years, married for 6. When we got divorced, the probably most hard-hitting, honest, clear thing that I took out of it from my own bias was you've been saying these problems for 7 years or whatever, and like they haven't gotten better. It was like a handful of problems that came up for 7 years, and we just like didn't really get past them for
Yeah.
whatever reason. And so it's like to say like this is a sticking point and we're fixing it for some of those things that could have been pretty fucking easy. So it's just I think that's having those objective, clear boundaries around like what you are going to tolerate in your relationship is so important for both parties.
That's the best way. What you just said is probably the best way to put that. People feel really weird about having boundaries with their partner, but they're not bad. Like the negative connotation we have with like, I have a boundary up so you can't get to me. It's like, no, no, no. These are in place to make sure that we thrive. And like what you just said was like, yeah, 100% agree. Yeah.
It's an up boundary to protect the relationship. Like I love
100%.
that. Your perspective is so great on this. It's awesome. Okay. I want to move into lifestyle alignment and then get into some like kind of hot seat questions.
Okay.
So how aligned are you guys in terms of like lifestyle, gym, meal prep, food procurement, all the things?
We vary. We meal prep. So we used to go to the grocery store together as a trip, like together. It was our time to hang out together. And we
Mhm.
decided to have it delivered to us so that hour we spend time like together in that time. So like all the way our groceries coming in, or everything is like I would say literally everything is aligned because we've worked over 15 years to do that. That friction we talked about, we didn't always have that 3 friction rule, but as far as like meal prep, so I cook her food and my food. And what she does for me is she DJs. So she's got this massive DJ speaker. Her equipment shakes the neighborhood, by the way. It shakes I could hear it with my windows up outside in my car. But like I do the meal prepping, she plays music for me.
Oh,
Um,
fun.
yeah, so there's a couple of reels where like I'm dancing next to her while she's DJing. That's usually when we're meal prepping. And we have built-in business meetings, we have financial meetings, everything that we sit down with. Like I said, those are our containers. And as far as like going to the gym, now go to the gym. We have different needs for that. Obviously, she's a professional bodybuilder, and I'm an actor, so we have different. So she doesn't work out with anybody. She is a lone wolf working out, and she is a monster. She just loves her music and loves to lift. We will lift together sometimes, but that's like her therapy a little bit as much as it is her like career. But family wise, this was really interesting is that because of her lifestyle, both of our lifestyles of being in places all over like she was competing or DJing on the West Coast and I was filming in the mountains of West Virginia the same week, like we were on separate sides of the country. And we got to come back for a few days, separate again. But her family, we didn't know this, but our families kind of, they didn't move away from us, but they always assumed that we were busy. So they would
Yeah.
never like, they wouldn't, they felt like they would step on our toes if they would invite us to certain things. So like I went to her family, I went out to her family and sat down with them and explained, how we want to connect. It's very important that we know who you guys are. And she's really close with her family, but they just assumed that she wasn't available to hang out. So we have the ability, like we 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 are constantly trying to form our lifestyle. When she's in prep is different than when it's out of prep. And there's like these things that start to separate because you're in such a tight container for prep. Then we reach back out and pull each other's back in. So we really like work to pull to help carry the load of each other when we're trying to like bring some stability and some enjoyment back to outside of prep for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna again be asking you for people that don't have quite that dynamic. What does it look like? Diana, do you have any questions on this one? 'Cause I know like with your partner, the lifestyle alignment is something we've even talked about.
Yeah, so for myself, I have competed in 2 seasons, and he likes to go to the gym, but doesn't quite have the interest in competing. So with that, like, how do you find other things that you can find common ground on?
Now, did you have that question before you guys got married, or was that is that what did you
Well,
guys?
I think I've just seen different posts from the group as well. Like people are trying to figure out, okay, like where can we align? Because I do really like this person, but it seems like
Can't
there's some differences.
Yeah, can't go
Yeah.
out like eating dinner, stuff like that is kind of gets out whenever you're competing.
So what we do is there's, I'll be really honest, knowing the cost of things really does help. So it's like the assumption that assumptions are killers in relationships and anywhere. Assumptions are, if I could eliminate assumptions completely and my biases, I would do that. But I can't. We all fall victim. We all fall victim. It's just how we react to those, right? Um, so with Autumn, when she first started competing, I assumed she competes, and then when she's done, we go drink and eat bad food. And she was like, "Well, I've got another competition," and it's like, "Okay, yeah, let's do that." And I would drive her to all of her competitions. I would sit outside while she did tanning. I would do all of this. The assumption is always, okay, we're going to do this. And when we got to do it, it was this overindulgent thing. To come to find out that that's not the lifestyle that she wants. It was I was restricting my own self so much for these moments that I would overindulge, and it's not, and she would do it because I wanted to do it. And the question was like, wait, that's not actually what I even want to do. But when she's competing, but previously, I would take on the deficit with her, which I don't have to, and I'm not built for to do that. It's not, I don't need to diet. I don't need to do all the things that she's doing um, to do that. So it's like, where did we find our time? It's going to be limited when you're competing, especially at the Olympic level, especially at like pro level. She would get up at 3 a.m. and be in bed at 7. You know what I mean? And so we scheduled time that was like our containers. That's what we ended up coming to. This last prep, it was, I knew that I knew that she wasn't going to be available as much. Or I've known that for the last 5 years that she wasn't going to be available. So it is up to me as a separate individual to find some other things that I enjoy. And then I can, when we come together, um, with the little time that we have, we just really make use of that time. But we have to schedule it. But we can't do things like eat out. We have to find, oh, dude, this is a really good tool. They have these cards, these conversation cards that prompts you. Like you can even use Chat GPT, but every time you use AI, it's going to give you a prompt and try to give you a framework. So we have these cards that when we sit at this table, at our little coffee table, and we'll just lay a card out and we'll just respond to the card. We don't have to generate anything. We don't have to think about anything, and we'll do one or two cards, and then we start to open up a little bit. But I would say that her energy is really depleted, so a lot of times she wants to listen to what I've got going on. So she um, Yeah, we hang out. Here's the thing: we hang out 24/7 pretty much. And now that she's in her off season, like we hang out like literally all the time. I almost forget what it's like in prep at this point, but she'll be in prep again. Um, but I would just say like make sure that if you're reliant on your partner for like a lot of your joy and happiness, just know that like that's a good time to explore the person who's not bodybuilding myself. That's a good time to kind of explore the things that maybe I like to do separate of that.
Yeah.
So that I'm not always reliant. That was a big thing too, is that I don't want to be reliant on Autumn for all my happiness. When I get to, I love that. That's my shit. Um, yeah, but yeah. Does that help? Does that answer that question?
I love that you brought up the conversation cards, like Cards Against Humanity or I think, no, is that a game? Sorry,
No,
Monster.
Cards Against Your Panties, that
There's like a
raunchy
deck
game.
of cards that's like in a red box, and
Yes.
oh, we're not really strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
good conversation deck. Um, yeah, I love that you bring that up because it just really opens the floor for conversation and you just flow and connect together.
That's the main thing is I think especially when she's depleted, generating is really hard. So to have something to do that for you, and actually we sit together, we cuddle a lot, and that's when we before we go to bed, we'll cuddle. Like we cuddle and lay there to get that time. And I know this is gonna make me sound awesome. She's this next part is gonna make me sound really good. She's been traveling for posing clinics around the country, and then she'll be in Costa Rica for a week on a spiritual journey with her girlfriends, which is cool. And so I will rub her feet at night until she falls asleep because there's a lot of going on. So she won't. It's hard for her to go to sleep when there's like a lot going on. So the time, even so, I don't want her to have to necessarily listen to me talk about all the things that I'm doing because I'm not traveling and doing a bunch of stuff. I don't want to like overwhelm her with this. So the time that we get to spend together is if I know she's relaxed and comfortable, that helps my nervous system out quite a bit. So I
Yeah.
rub her feet so that she can relax and fall asleep comfortably. That helps my nervous system. We're still spending time together, but we are like, I might be reading a book on my end and she's doing something on her end. So it doesn't always have to be so like interactive with each other to get that. And you can still benefit quite a bit from just like a big part of my life is just knowing that she's safe and okay and happy. Um, and I imagine that's for a lot of people's partners. So it's just like feeling out and being really playful and curious about the activities that you can do with each other that aren't going out and eating. You know what I mean? And going out and doing things that you can't do.
Our big takeaway from this, Derek, might be asking for your entire male family tree and then like dropping it in the show notes.
What's up? I'm putting this on my Instagram. No.
Okay, I'm going to get into some of the questions that have come up in the group, and if we can answer them like kind of with like a tight response. I know that we're getting to the top of the hour. I want to be
Sure.
respectful of your time. I'm going to start with what hopefully isn't an uncomfortable one, but this comes up a lot. Libido in prep. Like we are super depleted, our hormones tank. Like there's a lot of women who say like they really struggle at the end of their prep because their libido is just gone. So what's the conversation? Like, how do you balance that out? What are your recommendations for that?
The process of intimacy, you really have to intimacy at that point because for I know for me, like intimacy is like there's a spectrum of intimacy. Like there's like quickies and then there's exploring, right? And so there's sometimes when it's like, okay, if she's got the energy and she's feeling it, it's just go time, right? But when you're deep into prep, that's a little bit more challenging. So those times that you get to spend together, like cuddling or intimacy is going to take a little bit more to warm up into because of that fact. So you just have to be really respectful of how they're feeling about that. And I just go ahead, and this is going to sound, I'm going to have some alpha male somewhere who's going to like be like, "Oh, you're beta for this." I allow her to dictate it when she's in prep.
Yeah, I
Um,
think though. I
yeah,
mean, nothing like that's more of a turn off than when you really don't want to and someone's pushing it.
100%. So we definitely like we fought we it's yeah. So I'll just say that I allow her to dictate that, but that doesn't mean I don't tell her that I don't tell her that like, hey, I would like to have some time with you, but I know where she's at. So it could be a lot of cuddling before anything, just a lot of like play before that happens, making it a nice, easy, safe space.
Yeah. Okay. I absolutely love that. I think that's super important for people to hear. And then there's another one that comes up in bodybuilding. And I actually have some friends that are power lifters and have heard this too, where their partners have expressed how much bigger are you going to get? Are your shoulders going to get bigger? Like their attraction levels to their partners have changed as they have grown into the sport, especially like, the putting on more muscle mass, particularly.
Yeah.
Probably not your issue. What would your advice be?
She was 98 pounds when I met her, and she'll get to about 150 in her off season. She'll get on stage about 125, but like I don't want to shame anybody for their I'm the attraction is different, but it depends on if you've been in a relationship for a few years. It's like okay, maybe this the attraction has changed somewhat. I'm not gonna like shame somebody for feeling that way, for being like for how they view somebody. But if you're like in a marriage, if you've been in a relationship for a long time, it's like, bro, this is who you love. Like Autumn is the same beautiful soul to me that she's always been. And I know that's it sounds like such a cop out answer to be like, oh, she's always the same beautiful person for me. But I mean, I I just like to please my wife, and she's my wife. She's my. I haven't really had that problem, but I've heard it a lot. I've heard it where guys are like, she's getting too muscular. They say the word manly, but it's like how I mean, I can always make the joke of like, okay, how weak and small are you? You know what I mean?
We
To think, you know what I mean? To be like, what kind of that's such a I actually hate that one.
It's a tough one, right? And we sometimes we even have to shut down responses in the group about this because they'll pop off at like 150 responses that are all like, leave them. Like, we're so biased in our how we see it. So I like that you're at least pointing out like, okay, everyone's entitled to their level of attraction, but you think in a marriage, you see people who have like their thyroid fails or something like that. Like, there's a lot of things that can go. You could get in a car wreck tomorrow and like smash your entire face off. Like, there's
Right.
all stuff that could happen. So the fact that they're working to better themselves, like I get it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you love this person. So
Let me add something real quick to that. I agree 100%. And as this is like, I don't have to worry about attraction with anybody. I'm married to the love of my life. I'm moving forward. I don't have to care about how anybody else looks. I don't have to judge anybody else. I have my wife. This is my wife. And if my wife shaves her head, that's what I'm attracted to. If she gains a bunch of weight, and or she gets super skinny, or she somehow gets taller, I don't know, she gets tattoos on her face, that's my wife. You know what I mean? She can do whatever she wants to do. That's mine. And I didn't think this way 15 before I met her. I didn't think this way. I didn't know what this felt like. So I would say yeah, I would just yeah. If you're worried about how your partner looks, um in a way that they can't help or whatever, it's like I think you might be I would check their browser history. I think they might be already eyeing. I think that maybe the type of person they are, because I just don't vibe with that much. So
well, that's really interesting, and I'm gonna pull that into like our general advice segment. I guess let's start with married people who want to be in this happy, mutually supportive relationship that you have obviously found. I think a lot of it is partner selection for sure. But say someone's already married, like what are the things that you would recommend they do to shift it to being as mutually supportive as possible in their marriage?
find out what just lay it out on what your needs are. You know, if you don't, the uncertainty is really what kills a lot of relationships. And the uncertainty of like what the other person's needs are, again, the assumptions of that. So I would just, if this is, I'm gonna make sure this is what you're asking, is if like if somebody's already in a marriage and there's maybe some friction there. how do they pull that back in
Yeah.
to its place? Date, date, date your partner again. Go back to the fun shit. Go play. If you did miniature golf, maybe go try that. Autumn and I go to Chicago and walk around Chicago, the same circle, Millennium Park, every year, sometimes twice a year, and we go to the same stores and eat the same things because it's like it's just fun. That's how we date. We do the same things that we have done. We walk the same park that we've had for 15 years, and I'm very excited about that. But we date. We constantly date each other, and it's not. It doesn't have to be anything big or extravagant. I take this is a really important one. Her need. She was busy working, so I told her. I said, Get dressed warm. I'm picking you up at 8. Be ready. Didn't tell her what we were doing. And I took her out on a coffee date, dinner, and then to look at Christmas lights. It was so simple, but just the fact that she felt like, oh my God, you just told me to do this because you knew I needed this because I listened to her. And there, the problem solved. It's like I can't solve the problem if I don't know what the problem even is. So
Yeah.
it's like lay your needs out and then date your partner, get to know them again. I mean, that's it's just so much fun. I can't imagine people not wanting to date the person that they're with unless unless they don't want to, unless they didn't check that first box, you know?
Plus the resentment's gotten so out of control because the gap is there. You know what I really love that you kind of keep coming back to is you're not dismissing your own needs, you're not dismissing yourself in any of this or the male, the partner perspective.
Yeah,
I think that's really important because there's so much about like, well, yeah, you're showing up for this person and you want them to be happy, but it is, to start with your own needs is key. And I feel like we forget that sometimes is you got to like get your own house in order before you can really show up fully for somebody else.
100% agree. Yeah, that's a good way to say that. Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love that you've got it so dialed. Okay, what about for our single ladies for looking for like what are some symptoms, green flags, things that you would say to look for to find supportive partners?
Gosh, if I could say, if somebody shows you who they are early in their relationship, believe them. I could say that. I was a little rough around the edges with Autumn. Um, so it's like I could say like if somebody like shows you that they're impulsive or that they're like kind of a wild human. I was a cage fighter. I was like, I had,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I traveled to fight people and then and then there would be like the groupie women that would be outside the locker room waiting and for Autumn would be the first one there like get away, it's my dude, you know what I mean? So it's like um going into that you're like this, I don't know if this is the lifestyle that I want to, but she was patient with me and that's not even what I wanted, but I would say big green flags, gosh, for anybody out there that's single, don't settle, don't settle at all, don't settle for the have fun. First off, don't let anybody shame you for playing the field and having fun. Have some fun. Get to know yourself in these. You can use these relationships to get to know yourself. And I'm not under the delusion that Autumn didn't date before me. You know what I mean? I'm just the best one out of them all. That's my view. But the thing is like you're shaping yourself most not even necessarily what you do want, but what you don't want. And if you just remove all the things that you really don't like, that what you do want starts to really like open itself up. So don't be afraid to like, don't be afraid to date. Don't dive in necessarily unless you feel like it. You know what? Worst case, if you dive into a relationship, you go head over heels romance. They take you on trips, you take them on trips, whatever. Like that sounds awesome and fun. And guess what? You might fall flat on your face, but you just had a lot of fun. And guess what? People who are, and this is when you're having fun, Autumn and I were both having a lot of fun when we came into each other's lives. And so we were just like, let's just have fun together. So I would say that like as a single person, have fun, enjoy the process, and don't put so much stake on anybody else. But if you feel it, just jump. That's what Autumn and I did. We jumped and we didn't fight. We've never raised our voices at each other in 15 years. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I absolutely love that. I think that's really important. Last piece of advice I want to get is for partnered men, just for supporting the lifestyle. I feel like we've touched on this a lot, but how would you sum up, married advice for married men or partners?
Grow
The
up. Grow up, man. Grow up, but grow up so that so that your inner child can play. Um, yeah, that's a big one. Like Autumn and I we walk around our city in robes. We are like kids, like just running around because we just, I would say grow up and handle your business. Stop stop chasing things that you're not supposed to chase. Stop dreaming about a lifestyle that is not the one that you're trying to build. And you're going to have a lot more fun. You're going to enjoy the process a lot better. And listen, get really good at listening, and just know that like there's going to be there's a whole world of men out there that want to shame you for being a good partner. Um, that shame you for that, but they're never going to know that feeling. And when they do, they're going to feel pretty dumb having shamed that. So I would just say, yeah. Oh, and your wife, my wife, at least Autumn just, she's just like, she just gets things. She just gets life. So I don't, I don't dismiss anybody. I think the strength of an idea doesn't matter on like age, title, gender, any of that. The strength of an idea is a good idea. And when I started listening to Autumn, like really listening to her, I was like, "Whoo, this woman is brilliant. I need to listen to her more." So I would just, yeah, listen, and grow up.
Listen and grow up, but still play. And I think there's so much in that play because we talked like in the very beginning about all these things that you should do, and the partner that we should have, and the boxes you should check, and everything. And I think it's really easy for people to get kind of lost in that and just forget, is it actually making you happy? Are you actually playing? And uh, the self-awareness that you guys have to take a beat and realize that, and to be in a situation where, you've built enough security that you can say, okay, what do I want to do for self-actualization? My needs are met.
Oh, yeah, agree. Love
It's
that.
so great. Do you have any other advice or anything that I didn't ask you that I should have, that we could, should, would talk check on?
Well, the last thing you just said about security is actually probably the most important thing is create a space for people to be themselves. Like for Autumn, I we do have to work sometimes to create the space, but it's no different than setting up the sandbox to play in it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we have to like let go of our egos. We have to we have to prepare ourselves sometimes for play. And sometimes that feels like it takes away the whimsical fun of playing. You know what I mean? Like sometimes people are like, well, I just want to be able to like have fun. It's like, dude, would you rather like setting up that security so that you both can play and just like be yourselves is massively important. It is
Yeah.
massively that container. So yeah, yeah. When Autumn's inner child comes out to play, that is my favorite thing out of anything she's ever done. My biggest accomplishment is making her a space that her inner child can just run free, and she feels safe doing that. And then she goes out into the world, takes it on, and when she comes back home, she can fall apart, and she's safe here. She's not fighting two battles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that's so important. And you gave so many great concrete tips that I feel like people could, actually lock into or maybe pinpoint in their own dynamics. It's something that they can take action on. So I really appreciate your time today. I think this is probably the most I've smiled. My face is tired. Like this is just such a fun conversation.
Nice.
Please tell the audience where they can find you on socials.
Oh, my Instagram is Team Sawyer 007007. And I'm just on there hanging out with Autumn. Find me there. Say what's up.
And Autumn and you have worked together to develop a really solid platform for posing. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where people can find that?
Yeah, you can go on her Instagram automatic. You can find that in her link in bio, or you can shoot her a DM to ask about that. The platform, it's an insanely robust posing course. It's $197 for lifetime and a live Q&A every month to touch on that. She won't raise the price because she wants it to be affordable for competitors and new competitors and everybody, but massive. You get a ton. It's more than just posing, but we've been working on that for a very long time. So, but we have almost 1,000 members in that posing course, in the posing course, but we're very proud of that one. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Links and handles for everything in the show notes. And guys, we're ironing this out, but I think we're going to be able to work out some kind of discount code for group members. So I believe so. That'll
Yes.
be in the show notes too. I don't want to speak to that too soon. And we'll also get Autumn's documentary put into the show notes. This was fantastic. I'm so happy that you took the time to talk to us today. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.